Welcome to the Polygamer podcast, where gaming is for everyone. Join us as we expand the boundaries of the gaming community.
Hello and welcome to the Polygamer podcast, episode number 79 for Wednesday, July 11th, 2018. I'm your host, Ken Gagney. A few months ago, as you heard on this podcast, I was at PAX East 2018. You may have heard the audio from my panel here on this podcast. Also at that event, I stopped by the Diversity Lounge, which was founded by another former guest of this show, and I checked out all the various booths and tables there. I was delighted to discover a new organization, or at least new to me, the Diverse Gaming Coalition. And at that table, I met none other than the founder and executive director, Abbey Perl, who is joining us today. Hello, Abbey.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to be on.
I'm excited to have you. The Diversity Lounge is such a great opportunity to see all the different organizations that are trying to make gaming and gamers just better and happier. And I'm glad to see that the Diverse Gaming Coalition is a part of that. What exactly is the Diverse Gaming Coalition?
Diverse Gaming Coalition is a 501c3 organization fighting for change in online and real life bullying and harassment through modern concepts and pop culture. So pretty much what that means is that we like to talk about various social issues, most importantly bullying, through means of, pop culture, including video games, comic books, TV, movie, all that good stuff.
Now, bullying, of course, is something that happens both online and off. You're focusing on both of those. Is it specifically as it relates to video games or all pop culture, as you said?
Yes, all pop culture. We like to, get different, minds in and get, different kind of fandoms involved in our work. So we like to involve everything, and it's not just, restricted to gaming.
Does that mean that there is bullying in culture such as comic books? For example, video games, of course, you go online, you play a game, you get bullied, unfortunately. How does that manifest itself in other media?
That's a really good question because it's not specifically bullying per se, but it could, root down to more social issues, including the big issue right now, for mainstream film, especially film coming out relating to these comic book stories that are written. They're not diverse enough. So that's a big issue. And, obviously there's a lot of tension on that social media, people going back and forth on that sort of issue. So they're definitely still bullying, more kind of in the fandoms of it all. But when you look at it more, it's kind of more about the social issues behind them. How can we make our comic books more diverse? How can we represent people better? How can we, be more open, loving community?
Would you consider gatekeeping to be a form of bullying?
Define gatekeeping.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
I would say gatekeeping is when somebody who is in a fandom, somebody who enjoys Game of Thrones or Super Mario Brothers, tries to keep other people away from that medium instead of encouraging them to grow the community. For example, they might say, "Oh, you like Nintendo? Name the characters that were in so-and-so game. Oh, you can't? You're not a real gamer." And that would be gatekeeping, where you have to prove your credentials in order to appreciate a medium, which you shouldn't have to do.
See, that's a great example that you bring up, because as a female in kind of a nerdy aspect of, pop culture, it's something that I get a lot. And I don't necessarily find that as bullying, but I definitely, personally, but I definitely, find that as kind of sort of, make me look, dumb and kind of, dumb down my existence and my, love for pop culture and video games or whatever it may be. I find it more as kind of harassment more than bullying, because there's a difference between the two. And I find it more something that, is used to look down on a particular person or group when people do that.
That's an interesting distinction. Can you help me understand the difference between bullying and harassment?
Bullying is, when we think of bullying, you think of bullying as something more physical, but bullying really has to do with kind of both the physical and verbal aspects of, doing something to kind of be mean or hurtful to someone, whereas harassment is kind of just ongoing, where harassment is, ongoing, kind of verbal or physical, hate that is just kind of continuous. Whereas bullying's kind of more, not a one-time thing, but kind of something that, you think of the normal aspects of bullying. You think of, someone slamming down someone's books in the hallway, or someone getting shoved, or someone being, pointed at, called a name, laugh, and that's it. Whereas harassment's kind of more, continuous thing happening to someone.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, the origin of Diverse Gaming Coalition is closely tied with your own experience of bullying. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So back in 2015, 2016, I was having a extremely rough time in high school. I have a twin brother, and we both went to the same high school, and both of us were, picked on, called names. And I remember someone telling me that out of the, over 10 sets of twins that were in my grade, that we were the most annoying set. So kind of just a lot of verbal harassment. I can't say I got it the worst, because my brother is gay, and he got a lot more harassment than I did because of, how he identifies. So with a mixture of that and, mixture of, my own personal issues with my mental health, it kind of made me get to a point where I hated school. I felt that even though I had friends, I felt that they couldn't help me, or that even if they were doing everything that they could, that it just wasn't enough. So the January 2016, I dropped out. A couple months later, I received my GED. But when all this was happening, I had realized that people would come in and they would talk about bullying. And when they would do that, it would be these middle-aged, older people coming in, talking about bullying, and not knowing what the hell was actually going on. And it just made an awkward, uncomfortable situation for myself and my peers to actually kind of go somewhere with, our love and acceptance for everyone, go somewhere with our, anti-bullying policies. So because of that, and I didn't want anyone to, feel alone in a situation like that, I started Diverse Gaming Coalition because of my experiences, and because I didn't want anyone to kind of, be down the same path that I went. And I wanted to, talk about bullying in a way that actually got people engaged and interested, because it can be a dull topic, like many topics, but I think that there needs to be innovation into it. So that's why I started Diverse Gaming Coalition.
And it sounds like one of the innovations you've introduced is fun being one of the essential pillars of your initiative. How do you incorporate fun into fighting bullying?
That's a great question, because bullying is not fun at all. And when you kind of say that out loud, it kind of almost sounds wrong. Again, like I was saying, it's really hard to get kids interested and engaged in a topic that isn't fun and doesn't really want to be talked about. Not to some, the topic may be boring and they, oh, I already know everything about bullying. Or it may be, something that they're interested in, but it's the person that is saying this information to them that is not relaying the information correctly. So when I say fun, all the initiatives that we do, we want it to be engaging and interesting as possible. We don't want to just stand there and bore these people with a lecture or, just a buttload of facts, because the reality is young people know what bullying is, and young people know the issue. It's up for us to actually move past that and say, here's how we're going to fix it. So with that, we have a couple initiatives. We have our main initiative called Life on the Outside. This is an anti-bullying comic book that we use as an educational tool across the country, in schools, libraries, even summer camps. This is a story that follows a non-binary person of color, Asher Phoenix, and their journey throughout high school. Journey with bullying, mental health, friendships, all that good stuff. So we use this comic as a way to get young people engaged and involved, and a way to actually, maybe even see themselves represented in a story. So that's one of our initiatives, and we have a few others, but that's kind of our main one that we're focusing on as of now.
I got to read Life on the Outside, having picked it up at PAX East. Is it based on any one person's story?
It is, actually, and it's an interesting story. Back in May of 2017, we pretty much said, we want to create a comic, and we want to have it be a story about bullying. How are we going to do this? So we kind of built up this project on what we want it to be and all that great stuff. And in May 2017, we got a grant to host an event to kind of gather the community of where we live in Pittsburgh and to create this comic. So we had a few community members come out, and one of the community members that came out expressed to us that they were non-binary, that they were a person of color, and that they were being bullied right there where we were, in the school system that they were going to. It was in the town we were in. So, this got to me, and this made me realize that we need this story focused around them. So the story actually was originally a story about a zombie, playing zombie tag with a group of students in like a post-apocalyptic world. But obviously it turned into something completely different. And we, focused the story around not only their experiences in school, but we asked community members, especially those who identified the same way as the main character does, on, what are some good ways to go about this story? Because bullying is a big issue, but bullying is different depending on how you identify. So if you identify as a person of color, you're going to be more susceptible to racism.
Will we be seeing more adventures in Asher Phoenix's life?
Yes. So we are hopefully planning to, by the end of the year, see where this comic goes and then create a sequel to this comic. The kind of idea with creating sequels is bullying is very versatile and it changes all the time. So where we have our story now, and it's a great story and it's relatable now, it may not be relatable by the end of the year, which is actually pretty scary to think about how bullying changes in an instant, or the way bullying happens and is perceived. When we do get to that point, we're hoping to have, a story that is still relatable to the time period that it will be in.
I know bullying can change over large periods of time. For example, I was bullied as a kid, but we didn't have Facebook and Twitter. How does bullying change in the short term nowadays? Like you mentioned, your comic book might be outdated in 6 to 12 months. What would that look like?
A great example for all of this is meme culture. I think with the memes that we create, whether they're, just downright funny or they're downright wrong and derogatory, it really shapes our culture, and especially the culture of young people, millennials or Gen Z or whatever it's in right now. I'm not entirely sure how that goes, but young people are so fascinated by social media, and the main part of social media is meme culture. And I think memes are just something that changes like that. And I think that's also true with bullying. And not only that, it correlates heavily because a lot of bullying spurs up from memes, because although there's, really funny ones, there's also really offensive and derogatory ones as well. So where someone may try to be funny or edgy, they could just be downright offensive. So again, it's like meme culture. It changes in an instant. And especially with the versatility of social media that we have today, it could change just like that. Because the second someone posts something wrong or offensive is the second that, that culture and that community changes, and that spreads too.
We've seen so much mob mentality online, and not just with bullying, but also, of course, in our political culture with ousting politicians from restaurants and the like, and that's a whole different ordeal. But we see how the online culture can also bring people together, and it's great that the Diverse Gaming Coalition is able to, I hope, create sort of a safe space, a pocket where people can meet online. How do you get people to discover what the Diverse Gaming Coalition is? Is it an online space, an offline space? Do you have events?
Yeah, so we love to have people connect with each other, especially through our space. So we do both on and offline events. So the things that we do online is that we have our gaming groups, which, are a safe space, if you will, for gamers to meet new people, game with already existing friends, in, our Discord group, our Steam group, our Twitch, our Facebook group, all of our social medias, to be able to interact, meet new people, start a conversation. So that's kind of our online aspect. Whereas our offline aspect, we do a lot of events across the country. We have our Life on the Outside program that we do within schools, where people within that program, hopefully we could spark new connections that way. But we also do events partnering with different, businesses and organizations. For example, in July, we will be having a couple different events with the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. Those events they're different library centers throughout the city. We also would hope that people connect through those events that we have as well.
And you also offer a variety of online resources. I saw one that's in development is the Bullying Bystander Toolkit. Can you give us a sneak peek at what that will be?
Yeah, so we're actually developing this toolkit in partnership with some college professors and professionals in the field to pretty much show what is, a good way to deal with, bullying when you see it online or offline, because it's truly a difficult thing to answer. It's not just one set in stone answer, clean cut answer. It's very difficult, and you have to consider a lot of different factors when talking about being a bystander and intervention, all that stuff. Pretty much we talk about both the online and offline aspects, and what you can do personally, or if you need to get someone else involved, all that good stuff. So that hopefully is coming soon, but that is in development, as well as a couple other toolkits.
It sounds like a lot of your resources and events are aimed at the bullied or the people who want to help them. Is there any education aimed at the bullies to get them to stop engaging in that behavior in the first place?
That's a good question, because we personally believe at Diverse Gaming Coalition that there's two sides to every story. So where, being a victim of these heinous things are awful and should be treated accordingly, you also have to look at the side of the bully. So with these toolkits, we kind of also kind of bring in the bully's perspective as well, because what we always say is, how do you know what a bully is going through? How do you know that they're just doing this out of, pure evil, or if there's something actually going on with them that needs to be addressed? So we discuss that a little bit in our toolkits because, again, we believe there's two sides to every story.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they are equal sides. We see a lot of false equivalencies in mainstream media nowadays, and that's, I think, potentially dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. Because especially with school shootings going on recently, a lot of people like to point out that, these school shooters were bullied and, they had these mental health problems, and, you can't entirely blame them for that. And while what they did was wrong and should be, punished accordingly, you do have to take into account what happened beforehand, what was going on to make, this person do what they wanted to do, but not take it to a point where that's the sole reason why they did it,
That's right. I've read recommendations that if the shooters are always the loners and the ones with no friends, then what classmates should do is look for people at the lunch cafeteria who are sitting alone and sit with them. And while I appreciate and understand the value in empathy and camaraderie, I'm also hesitant to take that to the logical conclusion of victim blaming, which is to say, if only you had sat with him, he wouldn't have shot you.
Exactly. It's kind of almost a scare tactic. It's kind of like saying, well, you see that and you're scared for, your safety at school. So if you see that, do it for your own safety. And that's kind of a really gross mentality to have. And not to say it's that these kids' faults for thinking that. It's, to blame of these people for saying this to these children, because, we should be teaching kids to be loving and accepting and kind to everyone, not to do things to, feel safe or feel comfortable.
Exactly right.
Yes.
So if there is a solution, what is the solution to bullying? For example, we've looked at technological solutions where, words can be auto-banned from Twitch streams, or Twitter can have more control over who can access your account. There's education and society and empathy and, figuring out which kids are coming from challenged homes and maybe getting them connected to resources that they need. What do you think is the way that we can... I mean, this is obviously a very big question and beyond the scope of the Diverse Gaming Coalition, but how do we get to a point where your nonprofit is no longer needed?
Everyone kind of always hopes that one day that whatever kind of issue that they're focusing on, that their nonprofit is one day not needed anymore. And that's always a great, end goal to have. But the overall thing that I think that should be done to kind of prevent bullying is just to always just be loving and caring and kind to everyone. Treat everyone the same. Treat everyone with respect and kindness. Because I think that's what the main issue is today, that, everyone is, being judged because of what they think, what they believe, how they do things, and that shouldn't be the reason that we're judging people. We shouldn't judge people at all. So just talking to people like you would talk to anyone, talking to that stranger like you would talk to your best friend, being, more open and more kind is truthfully the way to prevent bullying, because when one person is nice to someone, they're going to want to take those traits that from that person and use it in their own conversations. So, especially starting that young too, teaching your kids how to, be respectful and kind to everyone and pretty much be there for anyone. More on the online aspect, I think that goes hand in hand online, but also online just to kind of be, friendly. There's a lot of negativity and kind of gross language used online, especially because of the anonymity behind, your online persona. So just being more friendly, more kind, because again, the language used online is a little gross and can definitely be toned down a little bit. So just, being a good figure, being that person that people want to look up to.
Speaking of being online and being anonymous, I understand that as one aspect of the bullying you experienced, you were also doxxed. Is that correct?
That is correct. My favorite game, actually, to play is CSGO, which is, for those of you who don't know, that's Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and that's a FPS game. And for those of you who do know that game, you may be thinking, why do you even like that game? That is the most toxic game that I could think of. People just shouting obscene things on microphone, and as a female, I don't know how you do it. And I get that all the time, but it's still my favorite game. Being my favorite game, I played a lot of competitive, and I was in a competitive game one day, and I was playing with another friend, and it's a team of 5. So I just got 3 random people on it, and I was just, playing the game, saying call outs, having some fun with it. And one of the random people on my team were, kind of being very harassing about me being a girl. They were continuously just kind of bringing it up and being obnoxious about it. And I was getting a little kind of anxious about that. It happens a lot for someone to kind of talk about me being a female on video games, but it was making me anxious because they wouldn't stop talking about it. I just kindly was telling them to, kind of let it be, just let me play the game. And they did not like me kind of putting them down or in their place, if you will. So because of that, they kind of, during the middle of the game, took my IP address and looked that up to find my full name, both of the addresses that I resided at, and the names of my parents as well, and announced that in the entire game. So that made me feel very uncomfortable. Going past that was very difficult because I felt scared to go online because anyone can find my information if they try hard enough and if I piss them off enough in this situation. So actually going further, a couple days later, I didn't want to play games and I felt unsafe playing games for a while. So my group of friends and I eventually started back playing games. But the funny thing is, I felt uncomfortable talking on these games as a girl, but I still wanted to play these games, and to play these games, communication is essential. So what I did to actually kind of come back and sort of get comfortable with the online world again is I actually downloaded a voice changer to change my voice into a more male voice, if you will, kind of present myself as a male and kind of just, play the game and let it be and not have to bring up my gender. So I did that for a couple weeks where I played with a voice changer. When I took it off and I went back to just my regular voice, the comments came up again, but I felt that I knew how to handle it better. So it's a very scary experience, but it's something that no one should ever have to go through, because doxing by any means is not okay, and no one should have to go through it. Especially doxing, not even mean kind of, the little offense that I got it in. Doxing can get pretty extreme with differences in political opinions and, political divides within this country. It gets pretty extreme and pretty scary for a lot of people. So you could be the shittiest person on this planet. I would wish that they still don't get doxxed, because it's a pretty scary experience, kind of being that vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. I have written some articles on how to avoid being doxxed by removing your personal data from online, but that's only a preventive measure, and it's a Sisyphean one because someone who's really intent can probably still find that information somewhere.
Definitely, yeah.
Crash Override is an organization that has been on this podcast, and they have some resources for people who have been doxxed. They neglected to mention that using a voice changer could be a way to avoid getting doxxed or what to do after having been doxxed. I hadn't thought of that, and it's unfortunate that you needed that, but it sounds like in the short term it was effective.
It was effective. It made me feel comfortable and kind of get past what was going on. But you're right. It shouldn't be a necessity. It shouldn't be necessary. I shouldn't have to use a voice changer. I shouldn't have to, not even me, but anyone shouldn't have to bend over backwards to feel comfortable online. They should be able to go online and be present and be themselves without having to kind of manipulate who they truly are.
I mentioned Crash Override. They are one of many organizations that do this kind of work, similar to I Need Diverse Games and Take This, just organizations that are addressing the diversity and problematic aspects of gaming. Several of them were in the Diversity Lounge alongside you. Can you tell us about your experience at the Diversity Lounge? Was that the Diverse Gaming Coalition's first time in the Diversity Lounge?
That was not our first time at PAX. This is our second or third year at PAX, but that was our first time at the Diversity Lounge, and that was one of my favorite experiences ever. With any, we do a lot of conventions, and that is probably my favorite. And I'm so excited to hopefully do it again this year, or next year, I should say, and it was just awesome because it was a space that people felt comfortable in, that had all these awesome organizations and these awesome companies coming together and creating this safe space at PAX where people could go. And that's really the only convention, or one of the only conventions, that offers a space like that. So it's a really awesome space. If you ever go to PAX East, I think all the PAXs have them actually, but if you ever go to any of the PAXs, you should check it out. It's a really awesome space, and it's a really great opportunity to be a part of.
And for those who want to know more about the Diversity Lounge, I'll include a link in the show notes to this episode, back to Polygamer number 28, where we interviewed the founder of the Diversity Lounge, Benjamin Williams. Also at PAX East 2018, you were on a panel called Transmission, the State of Trans in Gaming, which was the first PAX East panel to ever be moderated by my friend Sabriel Maston, who's been on this show many times, and we also together co-host another podcast, Transporter Lock, all about Star Trek. How did that panel go?
That panel was awesome. That, I think, was one of the best panels at PAX, not because I was on it, but because of, all the other great trans folks that were on the panel with me, that were, opening up such a community at PAX. I think it's, one of the first panels, truthfully, at PAX that involved, the LGBT community, or specifically the trans community in gaming. So I think it was a great panel. It opened this great space, and hopefully I could see more panels like that in 2019, because that was awesome.
If you can briefly summarize an entire 1 hour panel, what is the state of trans in gaming?
The state of trans in gaming that we have kind of concluded sucks pretty much, but there is also some great advances in it. Pretty much the state that we are taking right now, a lot of baby steps, but they're good baby steps. Some of them not so much. We kind of went over companies that are trying to have their token characters, but companies that are actually doing it in a really great way. We praise Blizzard a lot for their characters, specifically in Overwatch. It's Moria, who is trans. I don't know specifically what, but we went over that. But we also went over some games that did a shitty job at that. Again, the kind of overall is that we're getting there slowly but surely. We are getting there, taking baby steps, looking collectively as a gaming community, looking at all of these good and bad experiences with, character development and such, and taking them all into account to create bigger and better games for trans people.
I've always found it odd and disappointing how much video games as a medium lag behind other media. For example, in television, we had Will and Grace back in 1998 with a gay character. And even before that, in 1996, the TV show Spin City with a gay person of color as one of the primary characters. Now, Marvel movies obviously are a little bit behind as well, but it seems like we see more diversity in other media, whereas in video games it's still the grizzled old white man as the main protagonist. And I would love to see more diversity, including trans characters in gaming. I'm glad to hear that there are a few of them, and I hope that rate accelerates.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you point out that video games are very far behind things such as TV, because I think TV has the right idea because they're focusing more on the social good, whereas video games, they're still trying to compete to see who's the better game. How can we get more people to like our game? But they don't think about the social good that much because they're constantly competing for, the community. So I think it's interesting to think about it, but I think, again, we're taking the steps in the right direction. And I think they're realizing that, how they're competing to have these bigger, better games. The competition really lies with, their, characters and who they're having their characters as, because maybe the community wants to play a game that has a trans lead in it. Maybe they don't care so much about the storyline or, the graphics, but they care about, who is actually being represented in this video game. I think these companies fail to realize because sometimes they have dollar signs in their heads, but don't really think about what the community actually wants.
And unfortunately, at the end of the day, video gaming is a business, and those dollar signs are often what drive decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
So we talked about your PAX East 2018 panel. You were also on a panel at 2016 that I was also in the audience for. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So very happy that you brought this up because back in 2016 kind of started my journey in the gaming world and the social good with the gaming world. So back in 2016, I held a panel about sexism in gaming. Is equality attainable? And in that panel, I talked about, how video games are dominated by males or male protagonists, if you will, and are also dominated by male, kind of celebrity figures, if you will. At the end of that panel, we had a Q&A session, and I was asked a question. I don't remember the exact wording, but I was asked a question pretty much asking if I ever thought that trans people couldn't be a part of gaming. And in my head, I was like, hell yeah, like, I don't see why that would be a problem. But out of my mouth came no. And that got a lot of people angry for obvious reasons. I just pretty much said, yeah, screw an entire community. But what came out of my mouth was definitely the incorrect response. So what I had pretty much said was no, if the panel was more about females and not the LGBTQ community. And pretty much what I was saying was if females can't be accepted, why do you think trans people can be accepted? And that's what came out of my mouth. But truthfully, that is not how I think. And looking back on 2016, I've, gotten a lot of community comments on that panel. A lot of people still remember me from that panel and still, to this day, bring up, their opinions on that panel. And I'm still continuously learning from that panel. So having that mindset then, especially being closeted then, was something that was definitely wrong to have as an opinion, but also helped me grow as an individual and help my organization grow as well. So when we did that panel in 2016, we originally were under the name Nerds Want Equality. But after that happened, I took a couple months to reflect on this and decided that we should restructure our organization to be inclusive to everyone. So it instead of just female empowerment in gaming, we are more empowerment for all in all aspects of pop culture. We took a lot of months to restructure and redevelop who we want to be and what we want to do with our organization, and we are now what you know and love today as Diverse Gaming Coalition. But yes, I do acknowledge that that panel and what I had said on that panel was a complete, pretty much disaster, if you will. But again, if I have not done that panel, I wouldn't have learned from my experiences, and I wouldn't have, been able to grow and develop to the person that I am today and what our organization is today.
Not everybody chooses to respond to adversity with growth, and it's admirable that you chose to. Growth is never easy, and it sounds like yours especially was not, but it sounds like you've also come to a good place.
Yeah, it wasn't, especially since I came from a place where I didn't think that I could myself be trans, even though I was just kind of semi-bashing the trans community unintentionally. So after reflecting on that for many, many months, I, come to the realization that, maybe I'm bashing these people because I identify this way. I dabbled a little bit into the possibility of being a gender in high school, but I quickly kind of lost touch with that because not a lot of people were accepting of that and not a lot of people understood that. So I think I had the thoughts of it, and then once they were shut down, I kind of shut down with it and kind of got that mob mentality of, if no one's accepting of this, why even bother? But fortunately, with the help of the community kind of guiding me through, what was right, what was wrong about, what I had said, kind of helped me realize who I am as a person. So
if I recall it, at this past PAX East 2018, your name badge said that your pronouns were she, they. Is that correct?
Yes. For me, I actually, I don't actually know what I identify as of now. So sometimes I feel female, sometimes I feel non-binary, which is kind of almost non-binary in a sense, but is also not. So I use both pronouns because, I find both of them equally as comfortable as I do as well with my gender. But for a long time coming now, I've been kind of searching into the possibility of, being non-binary and also still feeling female. It's a learning process, and it's something that I'm continuously kind of looking into. But I think it's nothing that I need to rush, because I feel as if that one day that if I know what I am, I will know what I am in a sense, and that it's not something that I have to kind of rush in and know today.
Personal growth and evolution are processes that are never complete, and they shouldn't happen on anybody else's timetable but your own. So I'm glad you're taking that time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
We've talked about how you've grown as an individual, how Diverse Gaming Coalition has grown as an organization. A little bit more lighthearted, I want to talk to you about how your online presence is going to grow, specifically your website. You and I bonded in the Diversity Lounge over WordPress, which your website does not currently use. It uses Wix. Are you planning on moving from Wix to WordPress?
Yes, so that's actually I love talking about this because my website, over the years that I've been doing this, I've gotten so many great comments that, oh, your website looks amazing. Like, what do you use? And I always get these comments, but really, at least me, in my opinion, when I look onto my website, and I think this is maybe just because, I'm critical of myself, but I always see things wrong with my website. I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. But I think that, Wix is kind of more up to date with, specifically what I'm doing and can keep up to date with, how I keep up to date. So, I'm constantly adding things to my website. I'm constantly changing things and constantly, doing all these things to my website. And I need a host that can keep up with that. Whereas Wix, you can mess things up so easily on Wix. Starting out, Wix was a good idea because it's kind of a drag and drop system, and you could build this website from nothing and knowing nothing on how to build a website. But now that we're kind of more, involved and we understand websites more, I think using WordPress is a better option, in my opinion. It's been a long process, but we're still slowly but surely moving to WordPress as we speak.
And as I mentioned at PAX East, I'm very biased in this respect because I work for the company that makes WordPress. But I will say that if you like drag and drop interfaces, WordPress version 5.0, which is coming out later this year, has an entirely new interface codenamed Gutenberg, which we think will make it a lot easier to create content.
Awesome. Well, hopefully I will have my website out around that time so I could, get into the sort of drag and drop aspect of it all, because drag and drop makes it a lot easier, especially for people like me who have not coded a day in their life.
Absolutely. So the Diverse Gaming Coalition has a lot of people behind the scenes, people writing content for your website, people managing booths at events. How does one go about volunteering for the Diverse Gaming Coalition? For example, I saw a quote saying that you are fueled by millennials. Does that mean I'm too old to help?
Absolutely not. So pretty much the foundation of our organization is fueled by millennials. So me, I'm about to turn 19, and people that started this organization with me are also around my age. A lot of our volunteers are around my age as well. So you're never too old to volunteer. But, the millennial power that we have is what makes our organization great and what makes it so relatable to the young kids that we serve. So if you want to get involved in Diverse Gaming Coalition, so if you head over to our website at diversegaming.co, on the top there's going to be a section that says Get Involved. And in that Get Involved section, it will drop down to the different ways that you could get involved with our organization and become a volunteer, including taking our pledge, charity streaming, or even applying to become a blog writer, an ambassador for our Streaming for Good program that I was briefly discussing earlier, and even applying to become a partner project. So if you want to learn more about that, you could go over to diversegaming.co. And if none of those sound interesting to you, you could always email me at contact@diversegaming.co, and maybe we could see if there's other ways that you could get involved, because we're always using the help and expertise from anyone, everyone.
That's fantastic. And there will be links to all those resources and opportunities to participate and volunteer and contribute to the Diverse Gaming Co. on our website in the show notes for this episode at polygamer.net. Abby, thank you so much for your time and talking about this amazing organization you founded. I hope it does wonders.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
This has been Polygamer, a Gamebits production. Find more episodes, read our blog, or send feedback at polygamer.net.